Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Post Credits Podcast. I'd say it's a fantastic episode, but we're talking about kind of a bummer movie, and I am not feeling it right now today, or
Ever?
anytime I've watched this, and I have hate watched this, like, I shit you not, probably 20 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm a one and done type of guy with this one. I don't care to ever watch it again, and that's a shame. I only thought that it would happen once. We're going to be talking about Daniel Craig as Bond in his last outing, No Time to Die. And I only thought that this would happen once. It's because we already had this level of a movie, and it was called Quantum of Solace, And I was like, we are beyond that now. JK, just kidding.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to rein it all back in for his final outing in something that I don't care to watch again.
You know, this one's really tough for me because I feel like there's half of a good movie here, because I liked the first hour quite a lot, and I normally turn it off after the boat explodes, because like I've tried, and like I just fall, like my brain puts me to sleep, like it knows something and it's protecting me from seeing the rest of it.
Right.
I really had to force myself to get through this, to just power through it and make sure that all this was fresh in my mind for this most recent viewing, and it was hard, man. It was
hard for me, and I
was
had
quite the
not
chore.
yet seen it. I watched this morning for the first time, and it was a fucking chore to get through this one. I am so serious. That's not hyperbolic. I was at the hour and a half mark, and I was like, oh my God. We got another hour. And listen, to put it in perspective how I felt like such a chore this was, before we started this podcast, I told Brian that I watched the extended editions of the Lord of the Rings movies.
Oh,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Now that was like 12 hours. About. I felt like that 12 hours went faster than this movie.
Wow. So, all right.
And I watched all three of those in like a day and a half. I just was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's watch these suckers, And I checked my phone probably about 20 times during this movie. Not once during those 12 hours did I check my phone for the time,
Wow.
So, because I don't wear a watch, I just have a phone. And I'm like, what time is it? Oh my God, that was 5 minutes ago from when I last checked it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to land this particular thing. We'll talk about some headlines, and then we'll circle back.
Come back and let the hate train begin. We come back.
Over the weekend, Tom Hardy in London surprise entered a jiu-jitsu martial arts contest.
Why?
And won gold.
What? Okay, honestly, listen. Whenever you hear of like, this sounds like, oh yeah, I know he works out a lot, but I don't view him as, I view him as an actor always playing a fighter. I didn't believe he could actually do anything. So yeah. I guess joke's on me.
It's not the first time either. Like I don't know if he went the distance, but he definitely racked up some W's in another martial arts contest earlier this year. I think he's really into jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Which, is like holds and wrestling kind of submission, stuff like that. And yeah, I didn't know that either. I just kind of like happened upon it, and I was like, wow, that's fascinating. Like I feel like every time I do the bad voice, like he's just gonna show up and just like,
you'll just have to imagine the far.
Just a whole unconscious. I'm just dead because there's Tom Hardy. Because like he looks like a strong guy.
Yeah.
and like you were saying, like with like being an actor and working out and everything. But no, like apparently he takes it seriously. I know Ed Harris, not Ed Harris. Oh my God, Al Bundy. I'm blanking on his name. Ed O'Neill. He was like a third degree black belt in karate.
In what?
Al in
As an
karate.
adult?
Yeah.
It's just super funny though to think of Ted Bundy being in like a
Al
fucking
Bundy. Al Bundy,
Al
not
Bundy.
Ted Bundy.
Ted
Ted
Bundy.
Bundy's
Yeah,
never funny in any
different Bundy.
context.
That's not a good Bundy.
Yeah.
But him just beating the shit out of kids, not other adults, but he's got the black belt.
Well, I don't know that that's what that was. I mean, why do you say he's
No, that's what I
imagine
him in my head. That's what he's doing.
Oh, well,
like I'm a black belt by beating the shit out of kids,
Oh, maybe I'm married with children. That's what he was doing, and you're getting like that, woo, like the go out kind of thing. But
right,
yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it was legit. Like he actually knew what he was doing. It was a serious hobby. There's some other celebrities that actually had pretty good martial arts training. Like I know Sarah Michelle Gellar went pretty far. I don't know what the discipline was, but she was at least brown belt, which is no joke. That might have been Taekwondo. I don't know. It's really hard to even get like mid rank in a lot of things, especially if you're serious about it. So I mean, that was really impressive just to see that. And yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna think twice about making fun of the bear. It gives you power over me. Like, well, yeah, it probably does actually. Yeah. Yeah, no, sorry.
Do you think like the Green Power Rangers kind of jealous of that right now?
Like, why do you say that?
Well, he tried really hard to be a mixed martial arts fighter, and he wasn't very good. Like the Tommy, whatever.
Oh yeah,
okay. From the original cast or whatever. He tried so hard, and like he always came into the ring with like a little spike of green hair. He's the Green Power Ranger, But he didn't go very far. And then, Tom Hardy's just like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? I won gold in a jiu-jitsu competition. Eat shit.
Yeah, I just showed up
Power Ranger.
Won,
yeah.
So
yeah.
Well,
that's incredible.
Hats off to him. So that's what I got. What are you up to? What did you find?
Well, I just want to talk about the Hellraiser trailer.
Okay.
There's two thoughts of mine. One, I thought like the trailer didn't seem that bad. But it's like I'm not tricked, because there's been so many Hellraiser movies that are just obnoxiously bad that I'm not fooled anymore, right? So it's like that. Objectively, it doesn't look like a bad trailer.
They don't have heights to show you anymore.
Well, I mean,
that's like, about the extent of my Hellraiser punning I can do.
Okay. It doesn't look bad at all, but you can't get me excited about a Hellraiser movie, even though I've seen them all. I've seen all of them, which is not a good thing. And I almost think like I just see them because it's like I've seen them all. I guess I should just keep seeing them.
Yeah. What am I going to do? Not see this one? Like
right. So, but in all honesty, I was actually kind of surprised that I wasn't. Well, this looks like shit.
Yeah.
So. It didn't turn me off, so I guess I'll go see it willingly instead of just watching it because of longevity,
Okay.
So.
Or should we tip our hand here for the other reason that?
Because we're going to cover it.
We haven't mentioned this on the show currently, but for people who don't know, the month of October we always do horror movies for the whole month. And we're doing a mix of brand new and old school horror stuff with the new Hellraiser on Hulu being one of them. And I think that's a good tease for right now. Would you agree?
Sure. Yeah. I just I hope it's marginally good, right? That's all.
Well, there's nowhere to go but up after most of them.
Yeah.
I've seen the first 4 of them, and I just like pieced out, gave up after that. Like I never willingly tracked anyone down. Hang on. Let me clarify that. I've never willingly watched any of the other ones. If I have seen them, it was just totally incidental.
But we've seen one together.
Yes, you brought this up when we were discussing
Yes.
like our game plan for the future.
Right.
I
So
I have no
we've
memory of
seen.
this, which is actually probably a good thing because I feel like I mean, I kind of wish I didn't remember 3 and 4 to any level.
Right. Well, I
Uh
mean, Bloodlines. Wow. Just wow. It is. What?
yeah,
Repeatedly.
that is
Huh?
that is a thing
It's
that happens. Yeah.
yeah.
And
It is so crazy that I got a
the
theatrical release.
the director Alan Smithy did, which is an industry term for when you don't want like you've contractually finished the work, but I don't want my name on this. So your name is
Mm.
Alan Smithy.
I will then put that somewhere in a contract that I put out once in a while.
Well, and he was one of the guys behind K&B Effects. So
Oh
that's
wow.
all I'm gonna say there. It's the
Well,
information
no, no,
is
no,
very
no,
well
no,
out
no.
there.
Like, well, we got to break that down a little bit. Well, it was a part of K and B. The audience wants to know. We don't like
Yeah.
cryptic
He
in this
was
chat.
one of the letters in K&B Effects. And this was his directorial debut was Hellraiser 4 and
Who?
it
Which
went
one?
so
Howard?
badly. Mm-mm.
Was it him?
Nope.
Greg?
Nope.
Oh, the other one. He signed my Evil Dead 2 stuff.
Uh-huh.
What's his name? Don't be offended if you're listening to this now. I don't know. I don't remember your name. I'm drawing a blank.
Kurtzman.
Ah, yes. So Kurtzman didn't want his name on this movie?
Hellraiser Bloodlines, no.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And you don't know that it was studio interference or not. Blah blah blah. They're garbage. Don't watch them. I really hope this new one is worth watching because we're going to watch it. We're going to talk about it, and I want to pick your brain as somebody who has seen all of these.
The thing is like when you say like I've seen all of them, it's like, oh, you're a fan of Hellraiser.
It's not an
And then
accusation. It's
not
just that you have
like,
so much more of a knowledge base of it that I feel
oh
like,
yeah,
it'll be illuminating to talk about that.
sure,
So, October.
right. Don't ask me about dates. We're in like alternate timelines, just doing these things. So
Oh, yeah.
we'll see it. It's coming out somewhere in
Well,
October. Yeah,
the multiverse is a concept of which we know
we're.
frighteningly little.
I understood that reference. Let's put things into perspective because I am not the biggest James Bond fan. I'm not
Mhm.
saying that as like an anti James Bond fan. It's just not something that I'm totally into. I've seen maybe half of the movies. I've enjoyed most of them.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I think of like a new James Bond movie coming out, I'm thinking of the awesome experience that I'm going to have of seeing something that I can't see anywhere else.
Mhm.
Right. That's kind of like the number one focus for
Well,
me. And
is it because of the spectacle or like what
yeah,
makes
yeah, that's
you
what Bond
okay
movies have been known for. It's just
doing
these
things that have never
crazy
been done?
sequences and creativity and all this
Yeah.
stuff. And I always get excited because it's like, oh man, like like thrill me, so
Yeah.
it's gonna be fun.
It's Miller time.
You're right, right? And
Night of the Creeps for the win, but yeah.
yes. And like I said in the intro, I never thought we'd get as low as Quantum of Solace again. I feel like after that, they're like, okay, we really dropped the ball with that one, and we're
Mhm.
not going to get to that level. And then Skyfall was just like, what? I was so impressed with that movie, and I feel like Spectre got a bad rap just because it's the first movie that came after Skyfall,
Yeah, it's a tough act to
because
follow.
yeah, Skyfall was just such an exceptional movie. And then we get this one. And I'm like,
Transcendental
yeah,
is what I would call Skyfall.
yeah. And then this one comes out, and I put it on the same level as Quantum.
Wow.
Like it is a once and done. I saw Quantum in the theater.
Yeah,
I
we went and
own
saw
it.
that.
Yeah, we did. And
Owned it,
because
never watched
it's
it.
I own it too, but because it came in a box set with all the other Craig movies, and I
Ooh,
still am like, I don't give a shit. I've seen every one of them. I've seen all of them multiple times since I've owned them, except Quantum. I just don't give a shit.
hmm,
This new one, No Time to Die, or as the title says, Everybody's Time to Die, because everybody has died in this damn movie. Uh, it's a once and done. I'm not going to revisit this movie. There's nothing exciting in there. But let's talk about why you're a Bond fan first. Because I just explained like my baseline coming into this.
okay,
And my expectations are not high for these types of movies. It's
right.
just I look forward to the spectacle, a decent story, you know,
Mm-hmm.
heroes being heroes.
Right.
So, but I want to hear it from you so the audience kind of understands like your love for James Bond goes it's pretty long, pretty deep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I mean, you've been a James Bond fan since I've known you, as much as I have been an Alien fan. I think
Right.
that's like where we diverge. I think our
Yeah.
our enthusiasms are equal but in separate franchises.
Yeah. I was always super into comic books and Spider-Man, Iron Man. I liked Iron Man before it was cool, big deal, but Hulk, just all those characters. I really liked the creativity and just the idea that like even with like Adam West Batman, like the thing that I love about the Adam West Batman that no other version of that character has done is that he wasn't just this like avenger. He just wanted criminals to know what they were doing was wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea that you could just be like successful and good at something and defeat people even when they're cheating just by sheer virtue was always very appealing, and that's something to aspire to. So I'm kind of in my teenage years, and along comes the discovery of the James Bond movies, where here's a character who unambiguously does the right thing in every situation. Um, he's successful in a way that like if you're practiced and you're measured, like you can do this too. So it was kind of like the next step in that, right? Where it's like you got superheroes, but they wear tights and that's neat and colorful. But here's kind of the real ish world version of that in kind of an
Yes.
idealized scenario. So that's what drew me to that character, and then I watched all the movies as fast as I could and fell
Yeah.
completely in love with that. And that is
So what was
something that,
your oh yeah, go ahead. I was just
yeah,
gonna ask what was your introduction to James Bond? What movie did you jump into James Bond with?
God, I don't remember.
Okay.
I
So long ago that you don't even know. Yeah.
Well,
No, it's
I mean,
perfect.
no,
That's a fine answer.
it's not like it was that long. It's just that I can't remember a point in time where I hadn't seen all of them up until
Okay.
that point.
Fair
So
enough.
I don't know which one came first.
Okay.
And it wasn't like you could just like, well, here's the order that they came out.
Right.
It's like, well, that one's got a cool title. I like the cover on that one. What about what's going on here? So it's all just kind of a big stew.
Yeah. And for me, like I've asked you time and time again, like, what Bond movies should I watch?
All
And
of
like
them.
your well, all of them, all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got two that I won't recommend to anybody.
Well, this is number
Well,
3. Die Another Day, Man with a Golden Gun, Now No Time to Die. Quantum
right.
of Solace is probably in there, so maybe that's 4. But
Well,
yeah, I'm
that's the
sorry.
two
I
that I
just
was speaking of because those are
bulldozed
the
your
ones that
answer.
I've seen. Both of them are Daniel Craig. I don't. Well, and Die Another Day is just wretched. You know. Uh, but of the ones that you've recommended to me,
Hmm.
I think I've enjoyed all of them. So like from Russia with Love, Doctor No, I don't think I've seen any of the Moore ones. If I did, that must have not been a good one because I don't remember them.
Hmm.
I like half of Timothy Dalton ones. That's kind of a joke because he only did 2, so.
Yeah.
uh,
Wah, wah.
and then like half of the Pierce Brosnan ones, and then most of the Daniel Craig ones. So it's a shame that this is how they landed the plane, One thing I want to bring up is this trend right now of killing heroes. It's kind
I'm
of
so
fucking
glad.
frustrating.
I'm so glad you bring that up because I was talking to someone who's a professional film critic, and they're like, "Yeah, no, I liked it. I thought it was ballsy." And I said, "Hold on." I thought it was bandwagony because
Hmm.
like I was this close to taking my nephew to go and see this. And I've just kind of started showing him James Bond movies because he's like right around that age where, again, he likes superheroes. But he's got a really hard time when the good guy doesn't win.
Right.
And I'm so glad that I dodged this particular bullet because it got me thinking, like you were saying, about, the characters dying. How many heroes have we killed in the last 8 years? Wolverine, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Captain America, Iron Man. Did we
Black
really
Widow.
did we really have to add James Bond to that pile?
No.
Really?
And the thing I think that the argument will be is, well, these other movies did it in a respectful way.
Well, they were all Disney movies technically
Right.
now, but
Here's what I'll say to
they
that
did
though.
try to be respectful, but at the same time, I really want to hear your answer, and I will tell you why it's wrong. If
Okay.
you think they're
There's
respectful.
there's a couple examples that I find add to the story, right? Specifically like Tony Hawk and Wolverine. Now, I don't
Tony Hawk.
like
What?
Tony
Tony
Stark.
Stark. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit, did Tony Hawk die? Did he not land
No,
the
he's
900?
he's like
Like, oh
he's
my
like
god.
50 years old still doing tricks and shit,
Yeah, bless his
But
heart.
yeah. And with Iron Man, right? You
Uh-huh.
had this overarching thing of him being selfish, moving to being unselfish, and then to
Selfless. Yeah.
sacrificing to selfless,
Yeah.
right? And that's a really interesting arc, but it was played out through many movies where you saw this change,
Mm-hmm.
And I think in that arc, and the same with Wolverine, where you can kind of go with it in that it is an evolution of this larger story. A lesser extent with Wolverine, because he only had a couple good movies in there to show that off.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's, I guess, the exception to the rule, where I guess it's okay to tell a story like that, because if you look at the broader picture, it's a larger arc. Now, with this Bond movie, it just seems like it was the only emotional note of the entire movie was that James Bond was getting hit with a missile. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like it earned it at all. Not one bit did it earn this arc of sacrificing to save the greater good. It didn't earn it, and it was cheap. You know, I don't love Logan, for example, because my favorite comic book character of all time is dying by the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason. But if you look at the story being told, I think it can fit into that narrative and be beneficial,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes any sense.
No, it does, and it breaks your heart because,
Right.
you have this selfish character making the turn being selfless.
Right.
Um Yeah, no, I didn't love this in any way, shape, or form. I did
No.
really like the first hour. Like, I thought it made Spectre a better movie. Uh, what's crazy is that just out of the whole Craig series, um, I never liked his love interests, like any of them. And what I really appreciated about the first hour ish, like when they do the pre credit sequence, is how he never got over Vesper, and that's such a like part of his character.
I want to
So
harp on this a little bit.
in a weird way, I feel like I never got over Vesper because like I didn't
Yeah.
like anyone else, you know. Um so that was cool, and I liked that. So that bit they did earn, but it really feels like after Cuba, um I hate what they did to Felix Leiter. So I do want
Yep.
to circle back to that just a little bit
We can talk
because
about that.
my God, did they do him dirty?
Mm-hmm.
Um, through the whole Craig series, like the whole fucking series, it's like, hey, here's disrespectful. There's the state line. We're just gonna like barrel through that, foot on the gas, and just keep going. That
Yeah.
sucked. I wanted so much better for him every time he showed up, and it just never happened. It was like diminishing returns. But what were you going to harp on? You were going to give me a hard time about something?
No, Vesper. What year did Casino Royale come out? It's
Oh
like
God,
2006, 2008,
yeah, but
9.
between 6 and 9.
Okay. So Daniel Craig's Bond has been pining over someone he met for like 6 months for like 15 to 18 years.
Okay.
I just think that someone who we're made to believe doesn't do well with attachments
Uh huh.
is then attached to someone who turned on him for that many years.
Well, but that's what broke his character.
Yeah, but at some point there's no redemption to that for him. There's no light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pathetic in my opinion. That sounds really harsh. And
Well,
it's meant to be.
uh huh.
I just can't imagine that the person who's saving the world this many times can't move on is silly, And I personally don't like that every movie connects back to her. It's always about her.
Well, that's another problem that I have with the Craig run is that every movie is about the villain behind the villain, and it's
Yeah.
such a cheap trick. It never works. It never feels satisfactory. And a big part of that problem was that this was always supposed to be Spectre, like right
Yeah.
from the beginning. That's why in Quantum of Solace and Casino, they never ever say the organization. But then they didn't get the rights back to the lawsuit or whatever was going on. So then in
Well,
Quantum,
explain that. What was happening? Because I didn't know about that. So there was like a lawsuit going on?
right. So the original James Bond movie was supposed to be Thunderball, like way back in the day.
Okay.
And a screenwriter by the name of Kevin McClory was working with Ian Fleming. They were supposed to do, like the movie version of this because it's like, okay, you've written some books, but, we really need like a script, right? So they came up with an original plot for a movie, which we came to see as Thunderball, which was the first, it was the fourth Sean Connery film and the first time that Spectre actually was called Spectre, right?
Okay.
So they had a falling out because James Bond became this huge cultural phenomenon and they could never settle on the rights. So it was kind of like one of those lawyery things where it's like you own the rights to Ernst Stavro Blofeld, Spectre, SPECTR, right?
Yeah.
You own James Bond, right? So they kind of went their separate ways. So McClory tried to capitalize on his 15 minutes of fame. He remade Thunderball as Never Say Never Again and got to use James Bond because of he's remaking a script that he wrote, Spectre, all those guys. Meanwhile, as time is going on, the Barbara Broccoli, Michael G. Wilson, they've bought the rights to that movie, so it's not official. They just kind of ignore it to death, but they own that.
Okay.
So then he passed away. His estate, was clinging onto it because it was a cash cow. Blah 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 blah. Right. So fast forward to Casino Royale, we have the secret organization that we're building up as Spectre, and everybody fucking knows it's Spectre, but we can't use that name because we don't own it.
Okay. Interesting.
That was always a problem.
I always
and then,
assumed it was Spectre.
Yeah, and then they kind of made it about there's splinter factions and everything. It was never supposed to be splinter factions. It was, this is fucking Spectre, but we can't say it out loud.
Right.
So that's why it was Quantum in Quantum of Solace. That's why Silva was like his own guy. And then finally, hey, Spectre, we can say it now.
We can say the name.
The movie. Oh,
we can say it.
Yeah.
Hey, we did it.
Right.
Okay. That's so interesting that they had this plan, but not the groundwork, to make it all tie in together, like officially,
Right.
or through storylines. Oh man. All right. So we talked about his inability to let go of Vesper, Felix's end. Here's a question that I had. I should have brushed up on Spectre before this movie, but I did not. So his love interest in this one, is that the same girl from Spectre?
Yeah, Leah Sado. Yeah.
The same one. Okay. All right. Well, I figured it was as much. So I don't know. Bond just having a kid is weird to me. That he doesn't know about. I feel like this here on a broader, taking a step back, I feel like this is a movie that's trying to pull at our heartstrings without actually earning it, because when we get towards the end of the movie, it's like he's trying to save his lover and her kid, which he knows now is his kid as well.
Right.
But we don't, as viewers, we don't have any bond to either of them, the mother or the daughter. So no pun intended, but it's just we're supposed to look at them as being in jeopardy, but I don't care about any of them. He's Bond's doing this sacrificial thing to help them, help his family, but he never looked at it as a family, and neither am I. So,
well,
I mean,
I did not feel that Daniel Craig and Leah Sado had any amount of chemistry in Spectre or in this. I mean, I like that they continued one of his relationships to try to, play that so it wasn't just this disposable thing, which the character's kind of known for. I just didn't feel that they had any chemistry whatsoever, and I do not feel any. I'm right there with you. But again, that's kind of like my weird thing where it's I just didn't care for any of the love interests at all.
Right, but I think it holds more value
across the series.
Yeah. Well, it just seemed like they were really trying hard to force something, and I like all the little, on top of because I kind of, here, I'm going to sidestep a little bit. I kind of felt like James Bond was going to die just with certain things I saw in the trailer, certain news articles that were written, not spoilers, but it's I consider myself kind of an intelligent person and can start connecting the dots to things. And even if people aren't saying something definitive, I can be I think that's what's going to happen. What do you think about all the dumb nods that they made to James Bond dying before he actually dies in this movie? Like, the gun barrel opening. When has he vanished in the gun barrel opening? Ever. He did in this one.
I never saw that coming because he just succeeds
Yeah.
always. And
Oh, so you never thought he was going to die?
nope.
Okay.
And then it
Okay.
happened, and I was like,
Yeah. The
huh.
fuck? Yeah. So when it happened, were you like, what were you feeling when you saw that? Because I was expecting that that's where they were
I
going to go
I
with this
I took
movie.
about 2 days to think about it.
Yeah.
I just, huh,
Yeah.
huh.
Pretty
that
puzzling, isn't it?
that's it. Um, Speaking of his death, symbolically on paper, I see what they were going for.
Which was? So please tell me, because I didn't get it from watching this damn movie. So,
Ouch. I mean, not for me, but for
writers, directors, that ilk, for them, you
yeah,
mean?
that ilk. Yes.
Okay, hit
Um,
me with it. What were they going for?
well, they wanted to make it sound or seem weighty, like they were building up to this thing, and it was kind of a reversal of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where he gets married, he finds the love of his life, Blofeld kills Tracy, and it's devastating. So from that aspect, I see the all the time in the world reference. That was really the biggest telegraph, which I should have like. Okay, they're trying to like turn this on, like subvert this expectation.
Sure.
Um, when I watched this in the theater, uh, the guy in front of me watching his frustration with that gunfight on the steps and why he didn't get shot 10,000 times.
Right.
And I was like, well, I get it, and I'm kind of right there with you, but at the same time, he was like throwing his arms up, like, does
Yeah.
anybody else see this? Like,
Right.
you hear the guns coming off, he's right there, and he's just like, yeah, he never gets shot. Um, his ultimate death was meaningless, though, in the
All
sense
right.
that emotionally, you did not grip onto these characters, neither did I.
No.
They're hanging their whole hat, the whole franchise of his exact movies right on there. That was a miscalculation, I feel. It sounds like you feel that way as well.
Yeah, it's an incredible miscalculation. I think it's one of the biggest errors in current movie making. Not just a character dying, but this character dying in
Mm-hmm.
this fashion
Mm-hmm.
is a huge mistake. The reason why I say it is this is like the first time we've kind of had a chronological order of James Bond with all of Craig's movies, right? It has felt
It
that
was serialized.
yes,
He had an arc.
yes. Now it seemed like in other Bond movies they were timeless, meaning you could insert any one of these stories in this false timeline, kind of like Mad Max, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
it's just like continuity doesn't really matter here. We're just trying to throw you tidbits and crumbs of information about Bond's larger world, right? So you could watch any one of these, and that was the fun thing about Bond. You could watch any one of these movies from any era of Bond and feel like they were all happening at the same time,
Yeah.
right? Like, obviously, it looked different because
Well,
some of them were shot in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, right? So
uh-huh.
it's like there's a difference in how they look, but the feeling is that they could be interchangeable with any one of the Bonds who was playing them.
Yeah. Anachronistic is what they call that,
Okay.
meaning it is without time. And even some of his other movies made nods to, like Skyfall, makes allusions to Goldfinger.
Right.
I think that's the other thing that really took me sideways, is that for the first time ever, you've got a hard stop where this actor is not connected to anything that's happened before, won't be connected to anything afterwards.
That's right. It's definitive.
They have never done that before, and as someone who's watched all of these a bajillion times, that really took me sideways. Here's the thing that really pisses me off about the way that he died, okay? It was nanobots, right? So
yes.
Lucifer Saffron Lucifer the bad guy.
Let's get it all out. This is
Lucifer the bad guy.
Yeah.
Hits him with nanobots that are programmed to kill his not wife and daughter.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So nanotechnology doesn't currently exist. This is something that we could, maybe we're just splitting hairs on this. I don't know. But I'll go back to why the whole nanobot thing just makes me angry about, especially as a Daniel Craig movie. All right. So something that small, I don't know if you know anything about how EMP technology works.
Oh, you're talking about
his watch can disable electronic devices, right? Q gave him this. You have your
you're
watch.
Making me hate this movie on a whole new level now. All right, hit me with keep going.
No, you know where I'm going, because when he set his watch off, he probably disabled the nanobots, because something on that level, if it exists, and again, this is maybe us splitting hairs, if it exists, something that small would be difficult, if not impossible, to shield from EMP.
I concur.
And yet...
yeah, he's got to kill himself on top of a fucking silo because the missiles are coming, and she's like, well, we just need more time. And now that you bring in this whole fucking EMP technology, which is a side effect of an atomic bomb, by the way, that we can actually manufacture, like we could hit somebody with an EMP and quite possibly destroy any electronics that are in their body, like nanobots that are trying to kill him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, this movie has become really dumb on a different level now.
I hated that. In case I haven't made my point fine enough.
I thought it was really cool until they said it was nanobots. I was like, oh, this is like biological warfare, but like super sophisticated. I like the whole idea of like, oh, we don't even need to be around to assassinate him. We could just get him in a person in the vicinity of this drug. I thought it was like a virus.
Yeah.
Right. That was coded to attack certain genetics, which I thought was really interesting. And then if that got into the wrong hands, the ramifications would be insane. Say if it got into people who hate races, like, oh, that's a Holocaust. I didn't think that they needed to tie it to a plague or outbreak. I think like if they're like, hey, we don't want certain types of races around it anymore, I think that would have been threatening enough. Like, and then when they said it was nanobots, I was like,
Here's the other reason that really bothers me, because the entire Craig series has been very anti-gadget.
Yes.
Where
are the gadgets?
Well, I understand you want to get away from it, like ground it in reality. That's fine. But in one movie, we've got nanobots, cyborg eyeballs. It's like, hold the fuck on. Like, where did this come? Like in Skyfall, right? Like, what do I get? A gun and a radio.
Yeah.
You
Have
know,
at it. Save the
again,
world.
grounded in reality. We understand this is what you're
Yeah.
doing to differentiate it. Okay. And in one movie, we've got technology that does not fucking exist on any level. And we're just like right from the beginning, I turned on it. And that was a big part of the reason why, because I felt like the anti-technology statement that we were kind of, indoctrinated to being part of his run on the character, they broke that contract and never fucking looked back.
Right. Here's gadgets. There were no gadgets before. Now there's plenty of gadgets that don't even exist yet. Or maybe not to this level, yeah, it gets really frustrating when you start breaking down certain things.
Mm-hmm.
There's the gadget part. Oh, here's the other part that I want to bring up. So in Craig's Bond, and this is kind of something I had a problem with the whole way through, but I really only started noticing it around Skyfall and to now, he's really good at his job,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Really fucking good. I feel like when people get to a certain level of mastery at a job, that's like all you want to do, because you're good
Mm-hmm.
at it and now you can make money from it. That's like the best of both worlds. He just doesn't seem like he wants to be doing any one of these things, but he's like the best in the world at it. Why can't you? Here's what I'll say. I don't like that Daniel Craig is never shown enjoying being a 007, right? He's always against being a 007 when it's like, isn't this what you wanted? I don't know. It just seems with other Bonds, even Pierce Brosnan, it's like there was a certain level of joy he had in fucking up bad guys' plans, right?
I can point to the perfect example of that, and
Yes, please do.
no, I agree with you. He's very put upon,
Yeah.
and that's something that when they do reimagine it, I hope they get back to more of that devil may care aspect of the character
Yes.
that was very much missing. And the example that I'll point to, and I know you know this one, is it's in Tomorrow Never Dies when he's driving the car from the back seat.
Yes.
He's got this smirk where like even he doesn't
Yeah,
believe
I
the
know
shit he's
exactly
getting
what
away
you're
with.
I
He's
know
like,
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
like straighten up, focus up. Like that was fun, but like let's go. Like
Yeah.
that was cool, and to me, that's one of the best moments of Pierce Brosnan's tenure.
I 100% agree. Yeah.
But yeah,
We
Craig,
didn't have that
it
in
was a lot
Craig.
about taking the piss out of the character,
Yeah.
and I can appreciate that to a certain extent, but they took it to such an extreme
Mm-hmm.
that that's kind of what's going to make helicopter view revisiting these movies difficult for me personally.
Okay.
Um, I this movie was delayed so long because of COVID, and I might have unrealistic expectations for it, whereas other people don't. Like they could just go along with it and be fine. But I was like, "Let's go!" Like through the ceiling, like I need
Yeah.
this now, and it just
Yeah.
kept getting held back and back and back. I watched the whole series, like Quantum included, back to back to back to back to back a bunch of times. And I think that's a big part of why No Time to Die really lands sour for me. I like the first hour. Um
Mm-hmm.
the like cyborg eyeball and all that dumb bullshit aside, I like the
So
part where
fucking
he's in the
stupid.
car thinking about like, well, I don't care if we die, like I just want you to tell me the truth kind of a thing. I like the thought process there. And that's exactly what would happen too, is like if someone like that existed and Spectre existed, they would come at you fucking hard and like, and quick and try and catch you. That was great. Like seeing him work through that was really cool. I love the whole sequence with Paloma. Ana de Armas in Cuba there, where it's like, it was such a perfect play too on the classic like Bond bimbo, where it's like, oh well, she's kind of goofy, but like she's kind of a savant at the same time.
That
was amazing.
Charming. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not fall in love with that character? Like she totally steals the scene.
You were fantastic. Ciao.
Yeah. Next time, don't be a stranger. Stay longer.
Right.
Chef's
I agree
kiss.
with that. And it was actually shortly after that I was like, man, there's not that level of fun in this. And by the end of it, it left me a little sour on Bond, but not because of the movie. It's just like almost like, what does it become? Right? I don't mean it like, oh my boy, look what they've done to my boy, but it's like, when going back to the beginning of the podcast, I said that I look forward to a Bond movie because of the spectacle, right? Of they're going to show you some shit that's fucking dangerous, like for the stunt people, like, and it was like Bond had this certain ability to get the right people in at the right time to do some extraordinary thing, right? That you're like, you're just left in awe because you're seeing these crazy stunts. Where was the craziness in this movie? You didn't see too much of it.
Oh, they did some cool things, like when he stunted.
Yeah, but
that
it was
bike.
in the first hour.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could say that about Spectre as well.
Yeah.
Which I like Spectre more than most people. People were really fucking down on that movie. I'm
an ardent defender of Spectre. I like that movie.
I think it's fun, and after Skyfall, the idea. Here's another big problem of mine. You mentioned about not being able to move on, right? Like the character can't evolve.
Right.
What was brilliant about his arc through Skyfall is that they made his alcoholism the character flaw that it probably would be, right?
Yes.
And then they didn't really do much with that in Spectre, but then here we are in No Time to Die, and he's right back to like, I mean,
drinking.
Like, yeah, they played it with some comedy too, like where he just goes into Q's house and starts inviting himself to the booze. That was funny. Right. They go to give him the shot in the neck there, and it's like, oh, it's been about 3 hours since I've had a drink,
Right.
There's some funny stuff there, but at the same time, it kind of goes back to taking the piss out of the character in ways that we didn't really need. They just kind of wanted to harp on it for the sake of like, well, that worked once, so let's keep going back to that. Well, right. And I, at the end of the day, when I really look critical at those movies, I think Spectre is okay, but I think the only two legit great movies he made were Casino and Skyfall.
Yes. 100%.
I don't quite put this on the level of Quantum, which I know you do, but I think for me, it's really the strength of the first hour, whereas Quantum is just messy and confusing, and
Quantum's
the
bad all the way through.
Bad.
And this one's bad for like the 2/3 of the movie.
Yeah, and it's so hard to say because you don't know what the limitations were, if that's like a holdover from when Danny Boyle was on the project and left and creative visions diverged. Who knows? I think it's a very uneven ending to what could have been, the best run of any Bond, because when I say Spectre is like okay, it's still better than most of Brosnan's movies.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's middling is not really a slight. It's just kind of less good than these other great fucking movies.
Yes, exactly. So let's take a step back.
You know what I do want to bring up though before, since we're
Yes,
talking
sure.
about like bigger picture, is
Yeah.
another thing that occurred to me is that he quits in every movie except for Quantum.
Quits?
Yeah, he quit.
Yeah, he
Casino
does.
Royale,
He
I
has.
quit.
Well, that's what I mean, right? Like,
Skyfall,
don't you
quit.
love your job? Like, stop coming back to this job if you're always quitting.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how many jobs people can have in reality where they can quit multiple times and their boss is like, yes,
Oh
come
my
back.
God, I would quit every day.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
like,
I quit.
yeah,
I'm
that's for
coming tomorrow, though.
employing me for 8 years, Bridge
Yeah,
Burns.
but I'll see you tomorrow.
Come back, 'cause you're too goddamn good. We need you.
Yeah,
We need you,
yeah,
buddy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
That's true.
that's just stuck out to me as kind of funny, because it's kind of like with the new Star Trek movies where they blow up the Enterprise in every movie, where it's
Oh
like
man,
it at one point
I'm
in
so
time,
over it.
that would have been like, oh, you did what? But now it's just like, yeah, of course he quits. It's like jury duty at this point.
Yeah. On a side note, real quick, I started watching the new Star Trek stuff, like
Hmm.
the just Discovery.
Mm-hmm.
I like it a lot.
Oh, is it good?
Yeah, like there's some stinker episodes in there. I'm on like the 14th or 15th episode, so I might be on the last episode of the first season. But there's some really fucking good episodes in there. So only a couple stinkers where I'm just not on it, but the rest
Mm-hmm.
of them I've enjoyed. But a couple that are like, that's actually just an amazing story that anybody should watch, you
Oh,
know?
wow.
So,
I'll have to check that out.
yeah. Side note done. We're going back to Bond now. So, the here's what I'll say. Like taking a step back, looking at Daniel Craig's as a whole, it's only those two that I really want to go back to. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'll defend Spectre all day. I think it got a bad rap.
Mm-hmm.
It's not great, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
But as a whole, man, it's a bummer that this Bond there's only like 40% that I'm like that's outstanding, and the rest of it's just kind of nah,
Yeah.
you know. So
Yeah, I mean, everybody harped on it at the time because Spectre was kind of the last movie he was contracted for, and everyone was just like, "Well, he drives off into the sunset. Really? That's it?" And I'm kind of like,
wait, okay,
I
I
sort of
forgot how it
wish,
ended.
I sort of wish that's where it did end.
Because I'm actually glad you brought that up because I forgot about that. So heroes usually ride off into the sunset,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason that I like it as well, is because you imagine that they're still doing adventures.
They're just
They're
out there,
still
yeah.
out there, like you could come across them. That's not reality, but it's like that's what your mind, or at least my mind, is thinking, that you would come across these people doing acts of hero being a hero someplace, you know.
Sure.
And to have a definitive answer to that sucks. I never like it. Even when it's a good story, I never like it. I don't like seeing Iron Man dying. I don't like seeing Hugh Jackman as Wolverine dying.
Yeah.
Even though I can understand where it fits in the broader story, you know, and I get it. I don't like it though. There's a difference in getting it and liking it, you know.
I feel like if this movie had come out 5 to 8 years earlier, it might have landed different, because it would have been in that like, oh, that's ballsy.
Oh, we're killing everybody now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the fact that it kind of came out after, I'm totally over that, and I feel like most audiences are kind of over that.
Yeah, I think so.
It's not just shocking to be shocking anymore. It's just that's why I say it felt bandwagony.
Yeah.
But you know what though, like I will give the Broccolis and Michael G. Wilson a lot of credit. They're smart producers. I feel like now that they've done this,
there's nowhere to go but up.
well,
I'm kidding. That's
they're not going to do that again.
Yeah.
So okay, fine, you got it out of your system. He was the Bond that had an arc. Okay, what are we going to do next time, kind of thing. I just want the character to be fun again. And that was something that, as much as I did like broader picture Daniel Craig as James Bond, that was really missing from it. And
The
you
fun.
you had said that earlier too.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact that he's, very put upon, and the character was always like motivated by pain, like,
Yes.
okay, we've done it. We can
Right.
do other things, and I think that the most positive thing I can say is that's what always makes the character so endearing, is the fact that they can always reinvent it. It always has a place to go forward, and it's just kind of this infinitely malleable concept.
Yeah. I'm sure that we're gonna see some awesome Bond movies again, with whoever they decide is gonna be our next Bond.
Hmm.
Hopeful, well, fingers crossed, maybe it's some jackass actor. We just can't get behind it all. But I don't, because of that, um, I think I'm less mad at it because I know that they're gonna have more Bond movies, and this was in the long run a bump in the road.
Hmm.
I just think it sucks that I liked Daniel Craig as Bond a lot,
Yeah,
and it just sucks that this is where they left him at. You know,
yeah.
I don't know. It just doesn't seem right. You know.
Well, I sat there, having that downer of an ending, and I sat through the credits because that movie better fucking say James Bond will return.
Did it?
It did, yeah.
Okay, good. Because I got to the
That
credits
was,
and I was like, it's over. Thank God.
well,
I'm
you
turning
don't
this
like the
off.
credits. We've been over
No, I
this, but
don't.
I needed that.
Yeah.
Like, after that fucking movie, like, I needed that, like,
Yeah.
personally, on a
On a mental level. I don't think I can handle
yes,
this. I don't
yeah.
think I can have another day in my life if there isn't James Bond
I
released.
mean, you joke, but that's kind of where I was at with
Yeah.
that, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I can walk out of the theater now. Like,
Yeah.
my level of distaste for the movie notwithstanding, okay.
Man, I remember when we saw Casino Royale together, and I thought that was like an awesome movie. And I was like, holy fucking shit, we are in for a wild ride with these new Bond
Bond
movies.
is back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was so excited. And boy, did the wind come out of my sails when Quantum came out.
yeah.
Oh man, it's just like, here we go. They had
Well,
something fantastic.
after the Brosnan era, and it's through no fault of his own, um, those movies failed him.
Hmm.
It had nothing to do with him as an actor or what he brought to the table. World is Not Enough sucked. Great theme song, but just squandered
Yeah.
opportunity. And Die Another Day, same kind of thing. Um, I was at a point where I felt like I was either, you know, getting too old or too smart to enjoy these movies anymore. And Casino kind of brought me back to it. And I feel like I'm right at that same spot, but I'm a little bit more crestfallen,
Yeah.
just because it's like, you done the character dirty, and
Yes.
they tried to be respectful, and on paper I feel like it works, but in execution I'm not in sympathy with it. And
Yeah.
that first hour though, man, just turn it off when the
Yeah.
boat blows up. It's fine.
Yeah.
Watch that first hour,
Um,
it's great. After that, that's where it ends for me.
yeah. It's just, and let's just reiterate: Felix dies, Bond dies, Blofeld dies, all the Spectre dies.
Okay, so the Blofeld thing, I have to bring this up too.
Okay. Yeah.
The best you can come up with is die. Are you
Yeah.
fucking shitting me? Like, we don't have to have a perfect one liner for everything, but
Yeah.
guys, come on.
Yeah.
Die. Like, he's just this snarling monster. Like,
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. I needed to get that
No,
off
I
my
agree.
chest. I feel like the
I
weight
agree.
of the world
I'll
is just.
I'll go a step further. I don't think he ever should have been put in prison. I think that they wrote themselves into a hole by putting him in prison that they couldn't escape, you know? And they're like, I guess we'll kill him. That's the only thing we can do with him at this point, you know? And he's supposed to be the guy. He's supposed to be the
Yeah.
guy running the show, the guy behind the guy
Right,
behind the guy.
behind, yeah,
You know? And he's like, I'm in prison. What can I do? And then it's like, hey, you're
cyborg
dead.
guy.
Yeah, you're dead now. Here's the real villain that we saw in the last half hour.
Who is the same age as Leah Sado, but didn't age a day between murdering her family and then showing up in the end.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to be on your side, movie. Like I really do.
You're really making it difficult though. You're really going the opposite direction. I want to be with you on this, but you're making me against you, you know?
What a waste of a great actor though, with Christoph Waltz.
Yeah.
I could go down a whole rabbit hole on what I don't like about his version of the character, mostly because he doesn't have to be related.
Right.
They just
why not?
That's a different movie for a different time.
Because reasons. Yeah. Well, I can start off with some criticisms. The amount of times that they say ancient Egyptian in this movie, I gotta say it's probably in the hundreds. It is uttered so frequently that you could make a drinking game out of it. And if you did, if someone took a drink of alcohol each time they heard ancient Egyptian, you'd be in the hospital getting your stomach pumped.